Hi there, Jesse with eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at, and I'll show you how to install the Airlift 1000 air helper springs on our 2019 Kia Sorento. So I'm going to get it up, throw it on the lift so we can show you all about it. This is what the air helper will look like when it's installed inside your spring. It's a molded polyurethane that just slips into your springs, and then you'll fill it up to a certain PSI. And that's going to help you when you're handling any loads with your vehicle. It's going to put more support in the rear of the vehicle, keep it from sagging down, and it should help you with some sway on the road as well. These bags give you the ability to manually adjust the pressure inside of them. You could have it set up to where you would have two separate strader valves here, one for the left side, one for the right side. But most of the time, just having the one to control both will work just fine. With that manual adjustability, it gives you the ability to fine-tune the pressure just as long as you're between the minimum of 5 psi and the maximum of 35. So depending on your load, you can adjust it just to find that sweet spot. This airlift kit comes with 1,000 pounds of load leveling capacity. So whether your car is just super loaded down or you're towing a trailer like our neighbor is planning on doing with this vehicle, you'll have that 1,000 pounds of load leveling, meaning the car won't be sagging back a whole bunch. Just remember that's not going to add 1,000 pounds to your towing capacity on the vehicle. So just remember to double check your owner's manual and ensure that you're going off the number in the owner's manual for your vehicle's rating. Anyways, if you're looking to tow with your Sorento or just carry a lot of stuff inside of it, I think adding these airlift air helpers is a good idea. They're nice quality bags, they're made here in the USA, and you don't really have to worry as far as quality goes. As far as the install goes, they are pretty difficult. There's only about 3 or 4 steps, but getting those bags inside the springs will take some time and a lot of patience. So if that's not something that you're planning on doing yourself, feel free to check out our dealer locator. But if you are ready to tackle that project yourself, feel free to follow along, and I hope I can show you some tips. First step of our install today, we actually removed our spare tire just to get it out of the way to make everything more visible and easy to access. But we're actually going to have to take our airbag and kind of squeeze all the air out of it. You might have to go to the ground and push down, then fold both ends in. You're doing this with your rubber cap off of it. And once you think you have enough air out of it, reinstall that rubber cap, and it should stay flattened out like that. Now that we have our airbag ready, we need to cut a hole on this bottom rubber piece on the spring. That way we can send a hose up it later. So you can just take a pocket knife or a razor blade. It's kind of tricky to actually get it down in here. And we're just cutting about a 9/16 inch hole. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's obviously very hard to get to and hard to cut. So I'm just going to take this knife, get a hole started, and roughly cut a circle. So this is the hard part where we have to actually slide our bag into our springs. I sprayed some soapy water on it. Hopefully that will help it slide in a little better. So I'm just going to aim for this middle spring here, or middle coil, and barb down. Just make sure you're not putting too much stress on that barb so you're not going to create any leaks later. So I did go ahead and remove the lower bolt on the shock here. If that's something you're comfortable with doing, I recommend it. It gives you just a little bit more clearance. And as far as getting this bag in here, it is going to be very difficult. It will probably take you some time just kind of manipulating it until it gets in there. And once it's in there, we have to get the entire thing with the barb facing down. So again, that's going to take a lot of time. I have a pry bar just with some rubber on the edge. You don't want anything sharp that might pierce the airbag. So you're just going to have to work it in little by little and eventually it'll pay off and you'll get the entire thing situated in there. Now we have our airbag in place. I wish I had a few more tips and tricks to tell you, but it's really just a matter of keeping this wet with soapy water or some kind of lubricant and getting that pry bar in there and just working it through every coil. Then once we got ours inside the coil, we had to just pump some air into it and it kind of popped right into place for us. It's just not a simple job. Just be patient with it and eventually it'll get in. Now with both of our bags inside the coil spring, we're ready to set up our air line. So in the kit, it will come with this long air line. For now, we're just going to keep it all and take your hose clamp, squeeze it with some needle nose. And for now, we're just going to slide it down and leave it there. We're going to feed this up through a hole that we made earlier. Once we get it up, we'll have to, looks like I slid that clamp down a little too far. Just have to take our needle nose and work it. I'll push that over our barb. And then slide our clamp up. We'll have to stretch it out with the pliers again. Just get that clamped into place. When you're installing your hose into your fitting, you want to ensure that there's no brass metal showing. So mine came up a little short. I just came in with some pliers and carefully push that hose up into place. Now you can see there's no brass showing. So I went ahead and installed my hose onto the passenger side bag there. And then I took this hose, kind of found out an idea of where I'm going to put my T-fitting and cut the hose there. And at this point, I like to set the car down on the vehicle under its own weight, let everything settle, then bring it back up just to double check and make sure everything's where we want it to be. All right, now that we know everything is going to be good, we're ready to route our hose. So we'll see, we're going to come back through that hole that it comes out at, bring it up where that sway bar in link is. I'm just going to pull it all out of there for now. And what we'll do is make sure that you're not wrapping it around the sway bar or anything. We're going to come up behind the cross member here until we get to the point where we know we're going to tee off. Just make sure you're not kinking that on the way. So we're going to tee it off right about here. So I'll cut that. I have some tubing cutters, or you could use a razor blade. You just want to try and make the cut as straight as possible. Before we insert our T-connector, we will need to install our hose clamps. Just with a pair of pliers like the other ones, slide them on there. We'll do that same thing with that extra piece of hose that we cut off, because that's going to run to the rear of the vehicle. If you're having difficulty installing your hose into this T-fitting, you can either use soapy water to help lubricate it, or a heat gun will stretch this out and just make it a lot easier. So I'll heat this up, slide the hose on, and install our clamp. So once we have our T-fitting hooked up, I took our line that's coming back over here behind this plastic panel here. Then it comes out into this bracket. This bracket does not come with the airbag kit, however it is available here at etrailer. You could also drill a hole through your fascia here and mount it coming out, but our neighbor today didn't want us to do that, so we ordered this bracket separately, and that's how we're going to hook it up. I'll show you the orientation of the nuts and washers. So I clamp this fitting here, a strader valve, and put a nut on first, then a lock washer. And on this side, we're going to have our rubber washer. That's a tight fit, so I just push it up. Then a flat washer, then the lock washer, and then your nut. Now we're going to come back with 2 wrenches to tighten this down. It's a 13mm nut or 1/2 inch. While you're tightening it, just make sure that your hose isn't twisting with it. So if you only tighten one nut or the other, everything will start to turn, and you don't want any kinks in your hose. Now before we consider the job done, we need to go through and leak test all of our fittings. I went ahead and filled up 30 psi into our bags, sprayed each fitting just with some soapy water. And what we're doing is checking for air bubbles. Of course, there's going to be some from spraying it, but you're looking for air bubbles to accumulate. Just go through back to front, check every fitting, especially on the airbags. And as long as we don't see any new bubbles on anything, we should be good to go. Now that we've checked everything and confirmed there's no leaks in our system, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Airlift 1000 air helper springs on our 2019 Kia Sorento.